In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. Mr. Vice President, coming after the last two submissions, I must say that it has made my job very easy. But he'll deal with first things first. The Minister of Trade and Industry is the ideal example of what this PNM means and stands for. They live in a bubble. They speak to themselves. They have no resonance with anything on the ground. And they behave like they're in Pharaoh's court, Pharaoh's palace. They speak with arrogance. They speak with contempt. They speak as if Trinidad and Tobago is for them, their friends and their financiers, and everybody else can go to hell.
Yes.
I'll give one example. The United Nations report states very clearly, United Nations, that we have the worst foreign direct investment in the world. We came and get some. You spoke already. Keep quiet. We came now.
Hello, Senator. Have a seat, please. Have a seat. Please
Be careful
have a
you're
seat.
talking to me, eh? Because let me have a seat.
Have a seat. Hold on. Senator Mark, let's deal with this issue here first and foremost. You have your entire 40 minutes. There is no need to tell a member across the floor to shut up.
I didn't tell her to shut up. I told her to be quiet.
That will be done through the chair. Continue.
In the face of those statistics, not by us, we didn't invent those statistics. We are quoting from the United Nations. They come and try to convince the population that we somehow have good foreign direct investment. I mean, that is so ideal, or the epitome of what this PNM stands for. It's all about smoke and mirrors, mendacity of the highest order, speaking absolute foolishness, if I am to quote the Minister of Finance in the other place. Absolute rubbish. They have no idea what they're doing. And then we always have to come and address them when we expect in a budget debate, at least one of them would come and tell the population what they intend to do right now, not after 3 years, not after 4 years. They already had 10 years. What they intend to do for the man on the ground who are experiencing rising crime, horrific crime, unemployment at the highest, cost of living, standard of living, everything. And I will go right into that immediately because, you know, given the paucity of good sense on that side, even, we say what we say? One-eyed man is king in blind man country.
Exactly.
So Senator Vyash Nandlal, who gave a decent response,
We'll give him that. Yeah.
among that group, very easy,
We'll give him that.
he rose above the mediocrity that we heard. But then my aunt used to say, very clearly, Uncle Rulov's mother, Tanti Georgie, book bright, but street light. Book bright, street light. Speaking academically, but not telling us what is happening on the ground. So you come and talk about inflation, parroting the Minister of Finance. What do people understand about 0.3% inflation? Every time you go to the supermarket, you can't buy a thing. $200 and you're coming home with one bag.
That's the reality.
That's the reality. That is what the man on the ground is concerned about. But you're telling us about 0.3% inflation. Well, if that is so, and unemployment is so high, then people have less money, to demand goods and services. So what you'll have is a state of deflation, but we're not experiencing that. In other words now, the value of our money has gone down, and that is the point final.
Bottom line, yes.
That is the bottom line there.
That's the bottom line.
But you're all trying to, and there's the PNM, a horrific economic situation that you all have created,
Bracketing with a crime situation.
exacerbated with your corruption. Exactly. 3 billion gone. Somebody trying to, I ain't calling name, somebody trying to gangster the Auditor General and the Parliament by not laying it when called upon, by not laying when called upon.
No name was called.
Order 46-4, nobody is gangster in any organization.
Continue, please.
Called upon to lay the Auditor General report, then they refuse. When asked to account, refused to account too, couldn't account. When given more papers, the Auditor General said that is not enough. And still they tried and they tried. Why? They tried to twist the fabric of reality to suit their own selves and their narrative. You all have failed.
Yes.
You all have failed. Time to go.
That's it, yeah.
You know, if anybody go fishing, I know my brother here like to go fishing, and you catch that fish, and you're just seeing it beaten up, but you have it. And it's beaten up and beaten up. That's how we're all looking right now. Or they're just beaten up all over the place. Personal insults, arrogance. But you all had 10 years.
Yes.
You all had 10 years. And then telling us, wait another 3 years. And not only that, in that same bubble that you all like to live in, you all come in us and want to believe alternative facts and present an alternative reality. I'll give you an example. In the other place, one of the MPs came, Mr. Vice President, and actually said, oh, the UNC like to talk about the 106 schools that they built, but nobody could see it. You believe that? That is where they reach. Nobody could see the 106 schools. Dr. Tim Gopi Singh came and read out, one by one, every single 106 schools with pictures created, built by the United National Congress. Yeah. 106 schools. And they come. That's where they have reached to. Well, I can understand it somehow. Because I've seen it. I've lived long enough, and in different countries to see when dictatorial behavior has gone beyond the boundaries of logic. That's where they are now. They have gone beyond the boundaries of logic. So when we talk about proof and magician, and they're exactly like Pharaoh's magician. I don't know if anybody knows. I don't want to quote Bible. They're exactly like Pharaoh's magician. They came and they threw down the rod, they turned into a snake. But when the truth came, when Prophet Moses came, alayhi salam, when he came and threw down his rod, that was the truth. And that ate up their rods, and they had to run. And that's what they are. And that's what they do when the UNC comes and tells them what's going on. So we had the Honorable Renuka Sagam Singh Suklal. Imagine when Senator Jolene John spoke to the situation of crime in the country, spoke so eloquently, gave examples. You tell me anybody in their right mind would interpret that to mean that we wish death upon them? Your policies and programs have wished death upon the people of China today.
Yes.
Yes. You cannot tell us that until now, 530 deaths for the year. That is because of who? Because of what? You cannot address crime. Why? You do not understand the linkages that involves that ecosystem of crime. You don't understand it because none of you all addressed it here. None of you all. Ask anybody. Talk about investment, talk about tourism, talk about economics. Ask the man on the street if he feels safe to go out with his family to any event in Trinidad and Tobago. I swear to God, Mr. Vice President, I was coming up to the Parliament yesterday, so I swing up from Rice Road, had some traffic. Swing up from Rice Road and going up. I don't know why sometimes I get placed in this situation. I see a woman coming out of her house in Woodbrook. I don't know if you all know, but I am old enough to know that Woodbrook used to be a residential area without all the restaurants. And it was an area people used to love to see, affluent and all that. A woman, can I have Chinese woman, coming out to her car. Who comes out before? Her daughter. Looks left, right, and does the mother like this. That is where we reach. The mother come out, open the door, jump in the car, the daughter run back in her house. That is where we reach in Trinidad and Tobago. That is where all your PNM have Trinidad and Tobago right now. Yes. And all they come to tell us about we wishing that on all you. You all are death itself. The PNM is death itself. Yes. And you all have no appreciation of it. You all have no appreciation of all the economics and tourism and trade you're talking about. You all don't know that at the end of the day, you're also anti-people in your policies and programs. I'll break it down in this way. A South African freedom fighter called Musumbi Maki. You know, everybody is talking about Mandela and Thabo Mbeki and all that, but they had people behind the scenes. He was married at one time to Maya Angelou. And he spoke about what was his fear. What was his fear for democracy in South Africa? He spoke what will betray the revolution. And we must not be afraid of that word revolution. What will betray the revolution is the thinking of the black bourgeoisie. You know why? Because they feel they have something to lose. And we, meaning the revolution, must rely on the poor and working class because they know they have nothing to lose. You all always cater to that black bourgeois class in how we all think. And that's why the poor and working class is sinking further and further into unemployment, despair, and crime. And you all don't recognize that. Because you're not linked to the ground in any form or fashion. Disconnected from anything to do with the reality of Trinidad and Tobago. I don't want to go again into the contribution of the Minister of Tourism. When talking about flying out, they just speak to anybody who flies out. I mean, come on. I mean, I and all was surprised that he would say something like that. When right now in Trinidad and Tobago, people studying how to put food on the table. People studying how they could send their children to school. A fellow used to drive for me, had a decent income. He called me the other day. No money to send his child to school. He had no gas in his car. No food. 3 daughters he has. 3 daughters. You can imagine that situation. I have to bring it down to the ground to them, but for them, talk to somebody who fly out to see how sweet Trinidad and Tobago is. How could disconnected it could be? Well, I mean, and then further exacerbated by somebody who, with a little more than thinly veiled race baiting, come and talk about how the PNM represents all the parties and all of that. She only had to look 2 seats down to the senator from Tobago, Ansel Dennis, and listen to his contribution talking about how the UNC, how the Tobago now favoring South contractors. What I mean? So what? East Indians, the same East Indians who sitting down next to them, don't realize that what? East Indians have a chance to get contracts in Tobago? I don't understand. How you all could speak out of both sides of your mouth in the same debate. And much more than that is your failure to recognize the room. That has always been PNM problem. My father used to say that. Their failure to recognize the room and how to speak to the room. You want to come and tell people about, the senator said what? She don't want to give little children licks. the country rife right now with child abuse.
Wow.
6,000 cases
That's what she say.
of sexual abuse reported in the last 4 years.
That's a sensitive comment.
In the last 4 years, in the last 10 years, from earliest reports, almost 10,000 cases. None of them spoke to that. A Justice Judith Jones report on the death of the Prime Minister, since when, Colleague? 2.5 years.
December 20.
Minister in the Ministry of Gender and Child Affairs, come with a lot of tears. A lot of tears. Still, nothing has been done. Save your tears. The taxpayer is not paying you to come and cry and tell them you empathize with them. They're paying for action. They're paying for you to come and tell the Prime Minister, member for Digo Martin West, why you have a report of child abuse, sexual abuse, abuse in the homes, and you have done nothing for 2.5 years. And then want to come and tell us that you all care for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Who all they care for? All they care for themselves. All they care about politics, about politicizing this whole thing of child and sexual abuse. You all have done nothing. In the back of me, Independent Senator Vera and I, and a committee to go and see the homes, asking if we could get anything done. Twice I have seen reports. When he asks, who come into the, we need a quorum to go to the homes. The PNM members of that committee, they always have something to do.
Too busy for children.
I think he sent out 2 or 3. 3 times. We need to go and see these homes. Every time they have an excuse. They can't come and see the homes. And then come in to tell us, with 6,000 reports by the Children's Authority, you know what that means? It's probably about 10. Because many of those cases of child sexual abuse, they go unreported. So all this talk about tourism and jocularity and Pekong and all of that, we have to come back to the ground. People are suffering, the children suffering. This country is so great if you listen to this side. The country is so great, but children suffering. Sexual abuse, domestic abuse, rampant. In the schools, bullying, rampant. People losing their lives by suicide or otherwise. People getting chopped, stabbed in the schools. Innocent people. Take it up a notch. We go to all the unemployment that they've created. We now have, with 6,000 SMEs that shut down, and they don't like to hear that. Oh God, stale news. That is how they move as a government. They never like to accept what they have done and inflicted upon the people of China. They never like to accept it. So they don't want you to speak about it. Propaganda of the highest order. I have never seen it before. And I hate to make this macabre comparison, but it's like watching the settler colonial state of Israel and their propaganda. You know, so when they, I have to address it. 40-something killed today in Sidon. My academy is 10 minutes away from there. 40 killed today. In the last 2-3 weeks, almost 3,000 innocent Lebanese civilians killed. But what is the propaganda? Hezbollah had terrorist bases. Hezbollah had this. They were in residential areas. No proof given. Just like basically like them. And I know it might be a bit of a macabre comparison, but what is it to a mother in Gaza or Beirut whose child has nothing to eat? Or that child here in Tinapuna or Mova or Lavantil who has nothing to eat? What is it to them? It's the same. It's the same suffering of a child that you all have not addressed. Yes. So either you die under the guns of the settler colonial entity called Israel, or you die by the policy and programs of this corrupt, incompetent PNM government. It's not about games with them and about looking for laughs and to see who have a nice quip or Pekong. And if you see them shaking each other's hand and feeling nice, but you all have the country in a mess. That is just reality.
Yes.
You all have the country in a mess. Proof of that is every single thing that could address the poor and working class, they didn't address it. You can imagine with all the furor and lines that came because of the ships, the three ships, we call them Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria. An education, I'll go into that after, an education curriculum that they never addressed, they're in government almost 52 years. They never say, well, look, let me come and move away from this colonial, Eurocentric history that we teach. Let's make it a little more geared to our people, Afro and Indo-Trinbagonians. They never come and say that, but they keep it. All of a sudden now, they move that and put pan. Okay, nobody ever say no. Nobody here will disagree with that. We love pan. Certainly more than all you. But they come now and talk about what? Ask them how much time or minutes here in the Senate they gave to talking about pan. How much time? Almost none.
They love it for rent.
Almost none. Telling us about pan-yard model and pan-yard model. But the pan-yard model has been in existence from the time the first pan was made. They don't even understand that. The pan-yard model, to protect the community, facilitate the community, the ills, the wars, address the economic concerns of the community, was there from the first. That is why pan was created. You all are so done, so they can't even see that. That is why it was created. The pan came out of that oppression. It was their expression. You tell me? I grew up among the pan. Or they could say what they want, or just all they want. Or they could put 2-inch and punch and big all they want. Or they don't know nothing about pan and will never know where it comes from and what it means to us in Lavantil. Never know. But the pan-yard model that they come in now and talk about, first of all, they didn't do nothing about it. All they had was political meetings around it. That's all. Everything is to politicize it. But the pan-yard model, where they should come, or we are expecting them to come and say, well, here's what we have for pan. They come and talk about combing our pan. If I'm a pan man, who making $500, getting $500 from the government? Maximum. If I play for 3 pan side, I might make a 3,000. And have this government talking about, we want to present pan to the world. What do I mean to a pan here? $3,000 in 4 or 5 months? What kind of money is that? You telling me a pan man can live on that? $3,000 for 4, you know, all you know pan people practice. You all know, they know? Other than to go in pan and sip scotch and eat what?
Shrimps.
Eat shrimps. And play like they love pan.
And less special brown flip, yo.
I know, Senator Vera, we had odds on many things, but I know he's a pan man. I know he loves pan. That desperate man by you.
Good pan, good pan.
They didn't come here they didn't come and say, well, here what? In this new budget that we use to mamagai most of the people, at least as far as pan is concerned, this is what we have in place for the pan men and pan women of Trinidad and Tobago. How wonderful that would have been.
Would have been good.
There's the allocation that we're going to do to increase that pan people, in order to excel in the arts and crafts that she was talking about there, that we never saw. Here's what we're going to do. So anybody who playing, so you rank it. And there's a solution, by the way, so they listen up, or they might learn. So we'll have the top pan sides over the last 20, 25 years. Use your own yardstick as you want. Based on their contribution to the national culture, we'll grade them according to a payment system. So people coming in now and say, well, I playing for Renegades. I don't want to talk about Desperados. I playing for Renegades. I playing for All Stars. I playing for who else they have? Down the West there. Starlift for whoever. Silver Stars. What we'll do, because they have contributed so much, participated in almost every pan here, that means they have helped communities. That's what they understand. These pan sites have helped communities just by being there. We'll give them this amount of money, this amount of money. You can't give Desperados the same money that you want to give a band that you created 2 or 3 years ago. You can't do that. That's fundamentally unfair. They have invested in that pan yard, their community, for almost over 50, 60 years. But that would require a certain logic, a certain thought that they don't possess. They don't have the capacity. So when they talk about hybrid this and hybrid that, the only hybrid I see is dotishness on the side. It's a hybrid or dotish. It's either they willfully dotish
Mr. President,
or they just
46-4,
do not
please.
understand.
46-4. Senator Nakhid, whilst you make your contribution, I ask you to temper your language. Yeah?
I will remove, not even remove the dotish. I will say they're either willfully incompetent
Better remove the whole.
or they're just ignorant of what is needed to progress anything that makes sense in Trinidad today.
Did you pass maths?
So this government, I wouldn't even mention the elitist nature of the Minister of Tourism contribution as he comes in. I wouldn't even mention. But at least I thought, you know, Trinidad and Tobago must be getting fed up. We had 9 years of a budget of illusions. Every year they're going to do this, every year they're going to do that.
Fairy tales.
The Minister of Finance came in the 10th year budget, a budget of delusion. Didn't make sense. And if 5 hours and a half, I think,
50 minutes.
5 hours, thereabouts, of delusion, who would have thought a budget presentation that was so universally panned by anybody that made sense could be put in the shadows by his closing in the other house? That was even worse. And that was only 1 hour. That's to tell you how bad it was. His response to the member for Superior, the leader of the opposition, and I am paraphrasing here. The Minister of Finance says, and the opposition leader comes with all these figures and statistics, and he said, this is our budget. And it's not only about figures, and that is what was said. So with all the figures and statistics that he came with, the opposition leader came and showed quite cogently, in a most coherent fashion, that your numbers not making sense. That this is the case. His response to that was, our budget is not only about the figures. Well, it's not. In reality, it's not. But if you're telling us it's not about the figures, tell us about the human capital that you omitted completely in the budget. So again, I go back. Book bright, but street light. Not connected at all to what's happening on the ground.
They might think that's bulb you're talking about.
No, street light, the light on the ground, very light.
LED bulb, we ain't getting on yet. 6 years we're waiting for LED bulb.
And not only that, again on the Minister of Finance, when we thought that his closing in the other place was worse than his opening, and his actual submission, he came here in the opening, here in the Senate, and I must say, oh gosh, if every body language, every fiber of his body showed that he knew his time is up, it was in that opening. I can understand a thing. I mean, I went back over in the Hansard, and that was confirmed. A mess, this government running on fumes. Why they would feel that they could come and try to ascribe things to this opposition that is clearly not there. And I go back, unfortunately, to the Honorable Senator Sagram Singh Suklal. Because I really didn't understand it. And it was not only the egregious nature of how she tried to cast aspersions on the opposition and on Senator Julian John. I was wondering why she would feel it necessary in the Senate, when I must say, very diverse here, there, and there. Why she would try to insert that, and I realized that race baiting about, if she moves, they have 100 East Indians ready to follow her.
Race baiting.
Is that necessary? Who cares if it's an East Indian follow you, if it's a Chinese follow you, if it's a Portuguese, if it's a Lebanese? Who cares?
If it's a whole ULT.
If all you could make vacuous contributions like you all have, who cares? In my opinion, I know they talk about remedial in a minute,
We hope
half of all you should be the remedial classes that they have in July and August, half that bench qualified to go. Half of them. Poor. I hear an MP from them, because they bought it up. She said what? The Honorable Senator, she said what? None of them good. All of them not bright. And what kind of thing? I listened to the MP for Toko Sangri Gandhi. And by the way, he was one of the better ones from them. The man painted the house green. Green verbs up and down the place. Whoever is concerned about climate, the environment, would have been happy with this presentation. And I don't want to cast aspersions on the member, but I don't like when they jump out of the lane. You know what I mean? If somebody who have a little intelligence on that side jump out of the lane and want to give a little pecan, I might be able to stomach that, like Minister of Tourism. You do that, always we mash him up. Yeah. He can do that. No problem.
Yeah. We go with him, madam.
But when somebody so obviously, ill-equipped,
Man have a little thing too, yeah.
when somebody so ill-equipped, don't get nervous, Honorable Sukai. When somebody so ill-equipped to speak to us about anything having to do with that, because we have the solutions. When you all tell us, but you always spend money and always spend this, but we show you all tangible things we have done. We show you all in the healthcare sector what we have done. We show you all in the education sector we have done. And I know I will go into in-depth a little bit, Mr. Vice President, about that education sector because I think it's the key. Yeah. I think it's the key to this crime situation we are seeing. The Panian model, the sports, all of that is relevant, extremely relevant. And that shows by the amount of investment we made when we were there. That's why we are the best minister of sports. They could say what they want. That's why we invested in sports, because we understood what sport means to the people of China.
I don't have Gucci bag though.
But let me go to the education sector. I'll give you an example of how this government continues to fail us in the education sector. A few weeks ago, I was asked to do a press conference and speak to the crime. And by coincidence, that same day, the Guardian newspaper came out with a whole list of allocations. Do you know, Mr. Vice President, in critical catchment areas, where the crime is at its highest, by the way, in PNM constituencies, all of them, where crime is at its highest, you know the allocations for schools there. They have never done it. They have never allocated. So Piccadilly government, that they were supposed to rebuild now since 9 years.
They build it?
They didn't build a dam, they didn't build a thing. They didn't build a thing.
River dam and that thing.
Piccadilly government, all they do now, because I highlighted it, with Twiggy, who hold on that community. I don't care if she pay their name, I don't care about that. I care about if our child going to school or not. Correct. If our child could be out. If our child can use education as a pathway. So don't come and give us all this about pathway to prosperity when only can't give people pathway to education. How they going to prosper? How they going to prosper? They just going to prosper just so? That's why when you get a bunch of people and they get inbred in the PNM, it's a kind of inbred thinking because they only listen to themselves. So they end up just totally distorting and warping the whole process. Piccadilly government, St. Philip's Secondary, government primary. All of these schools, St. Rose's was closed down. Going to school where Rosary boys, I went to Rosary boys, all the St. Rose's girls cramp up with Rosary boys in one little building. Still? Because they don't care about education. So you saw all the allocations for this, allocation for that. Money spent, but the school is not built, not rehabilitated. The same for Mongdo, the same for Tinapuna, the same in all the schools along the east-west corridor. Don't talk about the schools in the rural areas. They want to imagine this government want to tell UNC about the rural areas, and we don't care about the rural areas. Something wrong somewhere, Senator. Something wrong somewhere. I passed by a school the other day, rat-infested, down in South. Rat-infested. Those children going to school in our community center now for the last 8-9 years that they promised to build. And hear what? They allocated the money.
Senator, you have 5 more minutes.
Jeez on ages.
Time flies when you're talking sense.
Yeah, but I'm keeping on this education sector because I want to go in. I have to skip and go to this. Because I don't only want to come and tell, you know what, the country's so fed up all here. I want to come and tell, keep talking that the only do this, only do that, the whole country know. Everybody fed up, they're just waiting. You know, I just feeling sorry because half all here, unemployable, nobody going to want all here. So it could be real trouble for all here. So I want to give a solution. And listen to this, Mr. Vice President, this is very important. There's a critical 4 or 5 months. We've seen problems with bullying. We've seen problems with getting students adjusted for secondary school. As they reach in secondary school, maybe the pressure, maybe the students coming in from other schools, fight all over the place. I can tell you that is a challenge. Even if you went to a school like St. Mary's or Fatima or Presentation, there is that pressure. Maybe less because people coming from so-called better homes. It's a fact. It's a fact. And that is because of all you. All you have put so much pressure on the ghettos. You all have, well, I say the ghettos, the hotspots that you all turn into ghettos because those communities used to be thriving communities. Laventille used to be stable. I used to go up there and play. I used to walk from the grapefruit track factory all the way up the hill without that care any wood. Spent 2-3 weeks with my grandfather and mother and uncles and them and come back down long. My father picked me up and I go. You could think anybody could do that now? That 3 months period after the SCA exams, when students are basically left in limbo, I see that as a critical time that we could reach those students who eventually go on to secondary school or go in a different direction in a life of deviancy. But what that will call for, it will call for a government, and that will be us, the UNC, who will direct resources into that period by giving talent identification officers, by giving mentors, social workers, identifying that time. Because you know how many students did the SCA? How many? Tell them. Almost 70,000. You have 17,000 kids basically on free time for 3 months. Some of them don't even go to school. Because when they go, the teachers tell them no classes. Because they finish SCA, they're just waiting. Why don't we use that time to identify children who might create problems in secondary schools? Why don't we use that time on a positive note to identify students who can give something positive to sports, to chess, introduce them to new things, new ideas? But that will call for a government that sees the possibilities of that time wasted. Not a government who only interested in just passing them through like a assembly line. As soon as they finish second primary school, send them to secondary school. Some of them in secondary school can't even read and write. Why not use this time as an assessment period, whether in sports, track and field, football? That way, create employment for all the coaches in Trinidad and Tobago who don't have work, the ex-players who don't have work. All of them now just depending on the PNM to give them something. Why don't we create an ecosystem around that education system? But to do that, Mr. Vice President, what you would have to do, you would have to invest in the school infrastructure. And somebody spoke to that. Because a school, and I think Senator Sunti Maral said, a school is a community center. Well, I would posit that not only the school is a community center, the feel of a community, when they have a sports day or a family day, becomes a community center. The Panyard becomes a community center. When you live in a village, in a community, any period of meeting. A house can be accumulated. The Nakhid house, 16 First Private Road, the Minister of Finance used to come there and eat from university with my brother. Because he live in the West, he used to come and eat. I'm telling you all, get off your high horse. In the little time that you have left, put your resources in the people. Don't come here and tell us about this and try and race bait and try and tell us about who could travel. Give some investment to the human capital that exists in Trinidad and Tobago, that we can use in Trinidad and Tobago to finally get rid of the crime, escalating crime, the criminality that we are so inclined to. And my last thing, every accusation that the PNM makes is actually a confession. So if you accuse us of corruption, of this, of squandermania, look at yourselves. Look at your 10 years. Look at where we have reached as a country. And then come back and give me that assessment when you all are in opposition next year. And I thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Senator